Rebellions are built on hope.
And welcome to another episode of Radio Rebellion, a Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Roberto Calderon. Thank you for joining us on another great Star Wars Saturday. And I'm joined by our co-host, our friend, Oti. Love that green background. Are you just excited for all that Light and Magic documentary? You have your own green screen back there.
Yes. What can I say? As I mentioned in the last episode, I'm currently in the process of moving, and this is the best place to record the podcast right now. And there's a little bit of echo. I'm sorry, but it's an empty apartment.
No, it's fine. We try to find the best place. Everyone that's done podcasts or whatever at some point have been in their closet recording. I used to be in my bedroom, so people can walk in and out as they're going to the bathroom. So whatever, you're here. We're talking Star Wars. It's gonna be great. Might be a little bit controversial. So we're talking about favorite Star Wars books, but it was hard. We'll get into it as we go, but I tweeted it out about 2 hours ago. I guess I gotta pick my top 5 because it's not easy.
As I mentioned, I've been driving to my storage unit all day, bringing stuff down, and all the time I've been thinking, which books are gonna be in this list? And I think I finally narrow it down, and spoiler alert, it's going to be High Republic heavy.
Let's not start right now, but it was funny. Last week, we were talking about Shadow of the Sith, and I mentioned, I don't know, probably like 3 times, like, I can't rank Star Wars book. It's something I just can't. And as soon as we finished recording, the first words out of your mouth were, oh, you know what we should do next week? Let's rank Star Wars books. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. And oh, no, what have I agreed to? So thank you for that.
Yes. I just realized, and this is going to be hilarious, I totally forgot about Shadow of the Sith. So I'm like rearranging.
Oh my.
I'm very tired. I'm sorry.
Okay, we'll give you that. You might forget a couple of books, but we'll give you that.
Another funny thing, this is very shameless to wear my own podcast shirt, but it was literally the only Star Wars shirt left in the closet because I left like a couple of work shirts and to take later. And when I got here, I was like, oh, is there a Star Wars shirt? And when I checked the closet, here it was. So check my TeePublic.
There you go. Yeah, we tweeted it out last week. Go check it out. There's good stuff back there. And when I agreed to it, then I think it was Sunday of last week, I'm starting to think I think I've already done a Star Wars book episode way back when. So I went through all my previous episodes. And about a year and a half ago, we had an episode with our friend Andrew from Outer Rim Reads where we talked about Star Wars canon books. And all the way at the end, we tried to talk about our favorite books. And that's when my connection went out for the first time. Andrew had to take over.
I remember this episode, yes.
We chopped a lot. It was going to be top 5, then top 3, and we kind of rambled through a bunch of stuff. But watching that and then thinking about this list, it's going to be very different from what I said a year ago. So it's funny, almost like watching Star Wars movies. Sometimes we rank them and, that's forever, it's never going to change. And when you see them through a different point of view, your ranking change. I think with books, it's kind of the same, even though we don't, at least myself, don't revisit them that often. But it's changed, especially because we've gotten so many new books out there.
Yeah, my number 1 has changed a ton of times. I finally settled on one, and it's weird because it's never been my number 1. But last night I was very hard thinking about it. I was like, I think this is it. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, the only spoiler I'll give, I won't say if people follow me or they watch that episode. My number 1 from a year and a half ago that I said on that episode, this book will never change, might not be even in my top 5 anymore. So it does happen. All right. And with that said, and before you said you're in your...
By the way, you should show a picture of my setup, if you can, if it's easy to show it. If not, just check my Twitter.
Yeah, go check it out. I'll try to find one real quick.
Just to see the conditions I'm under. You know what's funny, Alberto? You know how slow everything in Puerto Rico is with the government?
Yes.
Dude, I requested them to like cut the water service last night at 11 p.m. I got here at 8 a.m. Water was out.
Oh man, for
I'm
that
like,
they don't play. Oh,
yeah,
you don't want.
yeah. So I'm like waiting for the power to go out because I filled out that form also.
Yeah.
So let's see.
All right. Let's see if it shows. Here we go.
A bookshelf, a crooked bookshelf, a seat that my girlfriend left for me because it's totally broken, and yeah.
It's great. I used to do mine in the same chair. No, in one of my kids' chair that we bought from IKEA. So we will probably just see from my neck up. And I had like two books this thick, each one that would sit on top just to gain a little bit of height. I'm probably about 20 minutes into it. My butt is killing me. My everything's like, oh man. So at least I have a little bit of a better chair right now.
Yeah.
All right, my dogs are around. Let me see. Oh, they heard a noise around the door, so they're ready to. Well, there you go, Kyber. JB.
They're
There's
awesome.
Emphys over there. That's his butt. Anyway, you might see some hair floating around. All right, I think people are
So we
done
do
with
it.
our.
That's the way you do it.
All right, who's out
By the
there?
way,
Yeah.
Alberto, I tried to log into my account. It says I have no account, and it's so weird. So I logged into another account that I apparently had, and it didn't have the privileges. So
Wow.
you're on chat duties. For next time, we'll
Come
have to
on,
work it out.
dude.
I'm
You're
sorry.
here to help me out, so I don't have to
I'm
do
sorry.
everything.
I can
Second time
let
last week, same
I
thing.
can let you know if someone's in the chat, but
I see. I can. You can let me know, but I can see our friend Arsu Amin is here. How you doing, Arsu?
oh, Arzu,
Yeah,
hi.
the great Arsu just got verified on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. Congratulations.
I
Oh,
made a show out of it because I'm happy for people.
yeah, of course. And she sent us her top 5 books, or at least her tops. We'll get to those at the end.
Okay, awesome.
All right. So I'll send you another link at some point with your co-host privileges. Maybe.
Let me create the account as it should, and I'll let you know.
Yeah, just let me know. I don't want to send. I could send you also hosting privileges in case I'm not here one day, but I don't know.
I'd be so nervous.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll talk about that later. But if you guys are ready, I know I'm ready. Let's talk Star Wars and our favorite Star Wars books. All right, that used to be our intro music, or part of
Yeah.
our intro music. Oh, I didn't. Oh, wait. Yeah. Oh, man, I always forget. Let me just get this out of the way. Make sure you subscribe,
Oh,
comment, like. If you're new to our channel, thank you for being here. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes. Next week, we're doing our Rogue One watch along. That's going to be extremely fun. And then a bunch of great people are going to be here for Andor shows. Make sure you help out with the Amidala Initiative, with Equality Texas, the National Network of Abortion Funds, and the What Choice fundraiser. Always, all that you can find in the description below. All right, Oti, we're here to talk Star Wars books, and we gotta start just a few questions before we go into our list. For yourself, either what makes a good Star Wars book, or what do you look forward to when trying to decide which book you're gonna pick out there? Because there's a lot, so we don't expect everyone to read everything that comes out. So what do you look for when you're trying to pick out a Star Wars book?
that's a good question. I think I just go with overall feeling. How did I feel when I ended the book? Did it change any point of view on anything I had before? Or so there they are.
There they are.
So yeah, I don't really put much. I like make my list and think about it. Does it make sense? Yeah, sure. Okay, let's go. So maybe that's why my lists change so much. This is the same approach I take to ranking movies also. So I think it's an overall feeling. Like I don't really have a logic to it. Oh, this one has X amount of lightsaber fights, so it has to be there. There's not really a logic to it.
Yeah, it's difficult. Again, there's so many Star Wars books coming out right now that if you're someone that likes all that Jedi, Sith, Force stuff like we do, there's a bunch out there. If you like the more of the rebellion against the Empire stuff, there's also there Clone Wars stuff with Brotherhood, Padawan, kind of going back to Obi-Wan, showing his beginnings.
Are you
So there's
reading
a
it, by the way? I don't.
no, I don't have Padawan yet.
I
Sorry, Arsu. I know she tweeted at me a little bit last week. You gotta get Padawan.
this morning I realized I never pre-ordered it, so I just bought it.
Okay.
I'll get it like in a week or so.
Yeah, again, so many. I got Brotherhood.
It's so hard to keep up.
Yeah, plus Shadow of the Sith. I know, Arsu. I'll read it eventually, probably.
But I even told you, like, when High Republic is coming out, that's the only thing I'll
That's it.
read because it's just way too hard to keep up, and
Yeah. And
it's a
so,
shame. I wish I could.
yeah, someone just started mowing their lawns. I'm sorry if that starts going through that.
I can't hear anything.
All right, I just hear it. Anyway, so I don't know. For me right now, because there's so many stuff out there, is what just hooks my attention from reading either the description of it, or I try not to read excerpts right now. But if the description of the book hooks me up, then okay, I'm there. Like Shadow of the Sith, that description of it, that synopsis, I'm like right there. I gotta read that. Brotherhood that talked about Obi-Wan plus Anakin and Asajj Ventress and the business on Caton Emodia. Oh yeah, that sounds cool. Let me get it. Padawan, let's go to when Obi-Wan was a Padawan and he has all these different adventures. He's not seen eye to eye with Qui-Gon. Like, all right, I don't know. We had Master and Apprentice. I know this is even before that. So that one, that's why I didn't get it at the time. So it kind of depends. So we'll see. Did you read any of the Expanded Universe books before jumping into canon or no?
I have never read an EU book, and I really want to.
Is there one that kind of calls
Uh,
out? They say, I gotta read this at some point.
there's a couple. So the Kenobi book, I've always wanted to read. I remember going to Barnes and Nobles in the States and seeing. I was like, ooh, I want to get it. And I actually own it, so I'm getting the essential collections because I know at one point I'm gonna start reading them. I want to read the X-wing books; they seem interesting, and the Darth Bane books also.
Okay. Yeah, I've said before, I've never really dug into Expanded Universe when it was a big thing, when there was no movies, no TV shows or anything. Star Wars books was the only thing kind of keeping the brand alive at that point on the video games. But I never got into them. The first Star Wars book that I read, I think it was a Clone Wars novelization, which is now kind of Legends, and I love that book. Karen Travis did a great job. I prefer that book 20,000 times better, and his headphones go out. I prefer that book a lot more than the actual movie, which is my least favorite, the animated Clone Wars movie. But I love the Clone Wars book. Then I also read Dark Troopers, kind of zombies out there, which really fun. Doesn't feel like Star Wars. It was a cool read. But then I really didn't get into a bunch of them. And then when the new canon started, that's when I said, okay, now I have a fresh start. I can start from here and kind of go. And that's where my love for Star Wars books kind of took off. Do you remember your first Star Wars book?
Yes, I do. I was actually going to ask you. My first Star Wars book was Star Wars Bloodline by Claudia Gray.
Bloodline was my first canon book because a lot of people spoke great about that book. I said, okay, I gotta give it a chance. Expectations were extremely high, and I really loved that book. But I think I gotta go and read it again. It's been so long, and I gotta go back.
I have actually a funny story. So Last Jedi was the first movie I ever reviewed. It was the first episode we did in my podcast, and not this podcast, the other podcast.
Yeah.
So. It was the first one, and I remember doing that review. I told my friend, like, "Oh, I'm a big Star Wars fan, but I'm never gonna get into the books or comics." And I remember that was after my first viewing. Then I rewatched Last Jedi because I was still wasn't really sure how it was sitting with me. And after my second watch, I was like, "Okay, no, I'm into this, and I'm gonna start reading everything." So like after a week or so, I said that I bought Bloodline. I started reading comics. So yeah.
Yeah. So again, my first one was the Clone Wars novelization, then canon book. I'm pretty sure it was Bloodline, the first one that I read. Claudia Gray, man, it's a great one to start with. also agrees. So something that comes up a lot when talking about Star Wars book, we mentioned already how many there are out there. People that haven't gotten into Star Wars book feel it a little bit daunting to jump into Star Wars book. And the question is, where do I start? If someone comes to you, maybe they have, and hey, I want to start reading Star Wars book. I don't know where to start. Is there a book that you recommend? Hey, whatever you think about Star Wars, go with this one.
So if it's just a standalone, I'll ask the person like, what are your tastes in Star Wars? What do you like the most about Star Wars? And depending, so right now my go-to is just start High Republic, read
Mhm.
Light of the Jedi. It's a very recent book, very easy to jump into it. Like just go for it. So that's like my go-to. If not, if they're like, I don't want to start that new era, then I'll recommend something like Dark Disciple or maybe like Bloodline.
Mhm.
So Bloodline's usually the one I recommend the most.
Yeah, most people go with Lost Stars. That's the one that a lot of people out there kind of has a familiar feel dealing with all the original trilogy, but a bunch of brand new characters. So.
But you know what? Other books I recommend a lot. I also recommend Rebel Rising and Catalyst because is that Kyber or is that Ephes?
That's Enfys.
That's
Sorry, you
Ephes.
said Rebel Rise, and I gotta bring Enfys there.
Okay, so I Rebel Rising and Catalyst because Rogue One is not my favorite Star Wars movie, not even close. But I love those two books,
Yeah.
and I know a lot of people love Rogue One, so I'm like, that's just gonna be right up your alley.
Yeah, love both of those books, and I kind of agree a little bit with. Hey, just start fresh with the High Republic. You don't need to know anything about anything. Go with High Republic. It's a good way to start.
And sorry, I want to ask you: do you think they've done a good job to have like different jumping on points? Because I think there's this misconception. Because I think people remember the Legends days, how some series started to get a little bit longer, and it was hard to like jump into book 6 of a series. But I think they've done a good job to making it very individual, so that you can just pick up a random book. But I've had people tell me like, "Wait, how am I going to jump into Tarkin if
Mhm.
we have the Republic days before? Which books do I need to read before I get to that?" I'm like, "Oh, just grab that book and read it."
I think some authors do it a lot better than others. Daniel Jose Older, for example, does a great job catching you up.
Yeah.
Mina Horizon does a great job to catch up everything that happened before. So
Yes.
he's a great one. So if you just, hey, Mina Horizon, which is one of the best books out there, does a good job to at least give you the feel of what's going on. High Republic, I think, is getting to that point that's so expansive, and I guess it's good that we're going back 200 years or whatever, so it's fresh again for everyone. But it got to a point that it might be a little bit too much for people to jump into. If you just jump into the Fallen Star,
No,
I
you
don't
can't
know.
do it.
You
No.
have an idea, but you're not
You,
connected to the characters.
so
So
I always tell people you don't have to read anything, but make sure you like read. If you're gonna start with the adult books, read all of them. Don't jump into a random
yeah,
book.
or at least read Light of the Jedi and then go to something else, even if you don't read The Rising Storm, because I think every book is gonna mention the Great Disaster,
Yeah.
and at least you have idea. And if there's a mention of the Valo Fair, then you can make your own kind of okay. There was something else that happened off screen, basically. So at least Light of the Jedi, and then you can jump to some of the others. But yeah, a lot of people say, hey, just go with the adult books if you just want the main story. All right, so we gotta do it. We've been pushing it off, but we have to start. So
Yep.
we gotta go with honorable mentions first. So Oti, I
Ooh.
got like 12 honorable mentions.
Oh, I don't have that many. I don't have that many.
No, I probably wrote all my books as honorable mention. If you didn't make the top 5, but I have 5, I think, that I guess are the ones I'm gonna focus on. Oh man, I look at that list, and that's a top 5 right there. So give me yours first, and if you want to talk a little bit about them, that's fine, and then I'll do mine before we jump into our top 5.
Okay, so in my honorable mentions, I have Poe Dameron and Freefall. I just like that book because it's like very straight up, very fun. It's not that much at stake, and you learn a little bit about Poe. You can go the whole, oh, it's just filling in the gaps of Rise of Skywalker. I really had a ton of fun with that
Mhm.
book, and it's not a long read. It's very quickly paced. I really like that one. Into the Dark. I know that's a book you
Woo!
love. I
Mhm.
have in my honorable mentions. I have minor issues with that book that just keep it from like rising up my list. But it's a great book, and
Mhm.
we get introduced to Reed, who I love the character he's become. I
Mhm.
adored him in Midnight Horizon, which is a book that is not in my top five, but shout out to it. But yeah, that book was it, it was so different from Night of the Jedi
Yeah.
that it really caught my attention when it came out. I don't know if you want to mention another one so I can think a little bit.
All right, so I'm gonna go first before I jump into my top five honorable mentions. Just the other ones. Oh man, I feel so bad just putting them here. So the Alphabet Squadron trilogy. My favorite one from Alexander Freed. My favorite one, I think, is the second one, Shadowfall. I just love those books so much. ITO, that torture droid, became one of my favorite characters. All those because when I was reading, I think it was the first one, because I got the first Shadowfall. I mean, Alphabet Squadron for about a month before Shadowfall came out. I didn't touch it, but I wanted to read Shadowfall, so I went back and was doing my rewatch of the Hannibal series, which is great. So just seeing all that kind of psychology stuff on in Hannibal, and then all that psychology kind of psychiatric stuff between ITO and Quell kind of just hooked me. So I love that dynamic. So Shadowfall there. So, Midnight Horizon also is there by Daniel Jose there. I love this book so much. Tempest Runner by Kevin Scott. Kevin Scott is becoming one of my favorite Star Wars writers, so his name is gonna come in. Master and Apprentice, The Revenge of the Sith novelization. I have Rebel Rising also almost there. And I'll say, because I attack him every chance I got, I have the first Throne Canon book by Timothy Zahn. I really enjoyed that one. The first one, it's there in my honorable mentions, almost jump into the top five honorable mention, but at least I have one Throne book. I won't
Oh,
throw him
I
down too much.
I have one Thrawn book in my honorable mentions, and it's actually the first one in the Ascendancy, Chaos Rising.
Okay. Yeah.
That book, okay, it was a tedious read, but it's not a bad book at all.
Hmm.
I can see how some people would love it. It's not my favorite, but I did like end up being like, okay, this was a good one, and it was different. It was so different from
Yeah.
everything. It felt like a Star Trek book at some points,
Yeah.
and nothing wrong with that. And again, it's not my necessarily my cup of tea, but it was still a great book. Um, Another honorable mention that I have that if we had done this like a month ago, it would have been my number one.
Mhm.
The Fallen Star.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting.
I loved that book. I loved reading it. I know people were heartbroken by the end, but that ending, there's something about it that yes, it's sad, but it filled me with so much hope. How Avar and Elsar deal with what happened, and they're
Yeah.
like, you know, that's how we must proceed with hope. And so I think those are my honorable mentions.
All right. And
Dark
one more.
Disciple. Dark
Dark
Disciple.
Disciple. Okay, you gotta throw it in there. All right. So my top five honorable mention in no specific order. Catalyst, which a year ago was my favorite Star Wars book, is now down to an honorable mention. James Lucino did a great job. I love how he connects to Rogue One. I don't know if it was an emotional connection, it was something I didn't want to let go, but thinking about all the other books, I couldn't, I don't know. I feel so bad because I said a year in February 2021, I told Andrew there is no way this book will ever be lower than number one. And now it's not even the top five.
I Wow. So I didn't include it on my list because I was sure you were gonna have it, but I'm too tired to make mental gymnastics around it. So wow, read that book. It's great.
Yes. Let me say hi to our friend Alan Ching. Is here.
Ooh.
How for being?
Hi,
Thanks for
Alan.
being here, Alan. And of course, Arsu. She doesn't know what she's saying. Stellan is alive and well. He's swimming out
I'm
there,
sure he
just
is.
having fun with all the weird fish of that planet.
He's hanging out with Buriaga.
Oh, Buri.
The
Don't-
difference is that Buri's alive.
Yes. Lord of the Sith, which is one of those books that doesn't get talked about too much. Paul S. Kemp did a great job with Lord of the Sith. It was my first audiobook.
Okay,
Loved it.
interesting. Okay.
Light of the Jedi, Charles Soule, starting the High Republic. I know it was between this or another one, and I don't. It's introduced some of my favorite Star Wars in all of Star Wars. Unfortunately, didn't make it. And then two Claudia Gray books here. People are gonna hate me. Leia, Princess of Alderaan, which I think I had as my top 3 last time.
It's a great one, by the way.
Lost Stars. Sorry,
Ooh, okay.
it's honorable mention.
You know
Kill
what?
me now.
I'm gonna say something. I liked um, Lost Stars. I really like that book. I've never, ever, ever gotten into the hype that book has behind it. Again, it was a great read. I really liked it. I just don't feel that love for it.
Lost Stars. Go ahead.
Finish it.
Lost Stars was the first, not just Star Wars book, but the first book that made me teared up at one point. Just the relationship between those characters. There was a point where they weren't gonna turn back. The divide was there already. I just teared up at one point. I want to go back to it because I think that I don't want it to be one of these emotional things and just hype from everyone else, and that's why I have it so high. I want to go back and read it. But
maybe
Lost
I should read
Stars,
it. Maybe I should read it again.
I mean, Lost Stars, that's the one. That's if you do a poll,
the number one. Yep.
That's it.
And I bought it. I was like walking through Costco and they had it, and I bought it, and I read it like 4 years later.
Yeah.
But it's a great book. I won't deny that. And
Yeah.
So an honorable mention I do have. It's the Aftermath trilogy.
Mhm.
It's not great. It's not the best series of books, but I think it has done a very good job filling in that timeline. And a lot of those things are starting to jump into other things.
That's what I was gonna say. And I haven't read it because everything I read about the first one is that it wasn't that good, but then it got better. But I think I gotta go back because of that. It just expanded everything now. They picked so much out of that trilogy.
It's not great, but it's not as bad as people said. I think that since it was like the first series of books out of the bat,
Yeah.
a lot of people had these expectations. Oh, it's the Adventures of Han, Luke, and Leia. It wasn't. It's a strange book, all of them, but they're good. They're actually really really good.
And please, out of the way. All right. Arsu is adding, talking about Lost Stars. I think it's because it works really well as a standalone wartime romance, and it does. But it gives you the original trilogy from a different point of view. Some great characters. That relationship between Thane and Sienna Ray. Oh my God, it's so
And
great.
check out the manga. It's really cool.
Yeah, I've seen some of the art out there. It is pretty.
I have them, and they're actually. But the thing is, I read them like as soon as I finished the book, so it's not like I. Yeah.
All right.
I don't know what to say.
All right. Are you ready to start with our top 5? All right. So you'll say your top 5. We'll talk about it a little bit. Then I'll go to my top 5 and number 5. I mean, and then we'll go back and forth. All right. So starting with you, your number 5 favorite Star Wars book.
So my first in my top 5 is a book I really loved. I think it's a book that went underappreciated, and I think not a lot of people read it. It's Resistance Reborn by Rebecca Roanhorse. So, like you, this was the first book I ever teared up reading. There's this scene where Wedge finds out about what happened in Crate and what happened to Luke, and he just like breaks down. He's like, all hope is lost, and it really, really got to me. And how they idolize Luke in the galaxy, just like us fans idolize him, that was big. But it also, I had no idea going into it, but it works as a sequel to Bloodline in a very interesting way that I was not expecting in any way whatsoever. And I'm not even gonna say it just in case someone hasn't read it. But there's like this huge thing that happens, and I'm like, oh my God. There's a certain character that returns. I'm just gonna say that. A character I love. And yeah, no, it was actually it was a fun book. It helped fill in the gap between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. There were some threads I would have wished the movie had JJ just like read a little bit of the book, could have just like carried on, because there were a lot of things set up there. But it still works within the confines of those movies, and it's a book I really loved when I read it.
Yeah. All right. Dogs are gone. I had to get them out. I gotta cut their nails. They're just going clack, 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 clack.
Oh.
So Resistance Reborn is a book that I really enjoyed, but maybe then blame JJ or something. I didn't feel that connection to Rise of Skywalker, because it's that 1 year in between the movies. Here we go. What happened? And it shows you it's a great story, like you mentioned, with Wedge, Snaps. That relationship was great. Plus, you learn how the Resistance are getting all this ship, because all their fleet was destroyed in The Last Jedi. So at least when the movie comes out, you're not, oh, well, they don't have any ships. How this? So it gives you that story. I really enjoyed it, but I don't know. There was something missing for me in that book. So I don't have it in my top 5. And it's like you said, it's one that I forget about a lot, unfortunately, because it's a well-written book. It's just not there in my top.
I'm going to tell you something. I was listening to the audiobook of that book, and I was stuck in traffic. There was like this car crash. I was going to Ponce in the south part of Puerto Rico for a wedding.
Much traffic down there.
I was stuck in traffic for like an hour, so I was like just listening to the book. And since, as I mentioned, it has to do with feeling, how it made me feel, and that book helped that car ride be a ton better. So I know a lot of people don't, but I've also seen people who like read it a couple of years now after it came out, and they've been like, "This was a great book. Like, why don't we talk about it?" And I think you have a point there. It doesn't. There's like emotional stuff that ties into that movie and some arcs in a way, especially with Leia. But I do think that people saw Rise of Skywalker and they were like, "Nah."
Yeah, it might be because one of the reasons I love Catalyst so much is because how it connected to Rogue One. And maybe I was hoping for something similar and not having that kind of, my expectation got the best of me. But it does help, again, with Wedge and Snap watching Rise of Skywalker. When Wedge shows up, okay, I know why he's there. And then, unfortunately, when Snap's kind of, that happened, you're like, oh, no, Wedge, you just got there. And you had to see that.
I want that extended scene at the end where Wedge is like hugging everyone, and all of a sudden it's like, Snap died. What?
Yeah. Oh man, that's too much. All right, my number 5, no surprise, Shadow of the Sith, Adam Christopher. We spent an hour and more about it last week. I love this book so much. Maybe it's because it's the last one I read. It's so high on my list. But I said it, and I'll keep saying it. Everything with Luke, the Acolytes of the Beyond, there goes my list. It just fell down. Everything with the Kyber crystals, with Exing Punchard, the curved blade of Dark Noctis. It just did something for me. My appreciation again for the dark side of the Force, how it works, how it corrupts everything. Plus, you get all this story with Lando searching for his daughter, connects great to Rise of Skywalker and the rest of the sequel trilogy. We get to learn more about Rey's parents, why they were there, why they left her with our friend, freaking guy down there in Jakku that we still don't know why he's the only one that can help. Plus, we have our favorite bad Jedi killer that really doesn't look like a Jedi killer because he's always messing up, Ochi. But I love that book so much. Go see our episode from last week if you want our full thoughts on it.
So this is interesting because that's actually my number 4, Shadow of the Sith.
You just say you forgot about this book.
I had to do mental gymnastics to put it back in.
All right, so your number 4.
So it's actually my number 4. I love this book. I told you, it's the first book I've ever read that has made me sit and binge 100 pages. I read it very quickly, because I had made the promise to be in the podcast, but it also didn't feel like homework in any way. And I've had Star Wars book feel like that. It's like, I really want to release a review of it. I'm tired. Let me start. And it never got to that. And probably didn't help with my move because I left everything for the last minute. But we did an over an hour episode on it. We talked a lot of. It has so many little tidbits and details and connections. And it's also very well written. It's not just about the pointing at the screen and everything. So,
No, finish up.
Yeah, no, I thoroughly loved that book. It was a great story, a story I've wanted since I saw Rise of Skywalker. So
Yeah, like you said, this book has a lot that Adam Christopher had to work with, and it could very easily become one of those. Yeah, I know this, I know this, I know this. But it's, yeah, I know this, plus it expanded like 20 fold. Every little thing had a reason for being there. So yeah, Shadow of the Sith, man, that's a book that's gonna always be there. Because, oh man, and that's why maybe I want to go back and check the Chuck Wendy's trilogy, because we got a bunch with Blanchard, Noctis, the Acolytes of the Beyond, introducing in that trilogy. So great job. Before we move on to my number 4, do you do audiobooks mostly, or do you do regular hardcovers?
I've mentioned it a bunch of. I'm a hardcover guy. I hate paperbacks. I hate them, and especially if they're like the
Hey,
no.
my paperback.
I hate those ones specifically, the little ones.
Yeah.
And I actually for that book, I paid like more than I'm willing to accept on that book just to get the hardcover because it's out of print.
Yeah.
But again, it wasn't $100, but it was more than I'm proud to admit. So I do hardcovers, but I've told you my favorite experience with Star Wars book, the book, and the audiobook at the same time. It helps with keeping your reading pacing, and the audiobook for Star Wars books is incredible. The production value is just insane.
Yeah. I love audiobooks. I haven't done a lot. I done Lord of the Sith, like I mentioned, Tempest Runner, and the last Throne book was the last one. The only 3 audiobooks that I've done. And I love all the production behind it, all the special effects, the music, and all that. I know that I just forgot his name, the guy that does all the voices, Mark Thompson. I know he's a goat. He does a great job. I'll say it. It pulled me out some of the voice choices that he used for the Throne book. Just pulled me out. I couldn't deal with his voice for Cherry and for Thalias. He sounded like a grown-up 40-year-old man trying to do an 8-year-old girl's voice, and it just threw me. I couldn't take it seriously. Everything else was fine, but there were some, and another one was a little too gruff. Yeah, what are you doing? What's this? A gangster from the 20s? I can't. But everything else is done. It's great. But I love what they do with Tempest Runner, and I didn't get to do Dooku Jedi Lost this way, where they have the full cast. That I love those, and I'll get.
That's a totally different experience.
Yeah,
I'll never stop singing his praises. His Mark Young-Rowe is just top tier. And I want an animated show. I need him to be Mark Young-Rowe.
He does a great Marquis, and he does a great Thrawn. I'm not taking that away from him.
He does a great Thrawn.
I prefer my books physical at this point. I don't know. I just want to have them there.
I preferred them physically until I had to move them. I live on a 5th floor.
Yeah. All right. So my number 4, and this is from an author that's quickly becoming one of my favorites as I'm doing this list. Oh man, his name shows up. I love it. It's from Cavan Scott, and it's The Rising Storm. It was difficult between that of the Jedi and The Rising Storm, but I had to go with The Rising Storm, the second one of the adult books from the High Republic. The Valo Fair, we finally get more with Stellan Geos. We get Elsar Band there. We don't get Avar Kriss, unfortunately, but we get introduced to Tyoric, which I love. We have weird creatures hanging around. Tyoric and Elsar Man having to work together, use this force mind meld to be able to get on these dragons and fly away to help out. And then the ending, of course, if we're talking about breaking hearts, everything that happens with Loden Greatstorm, we have the Leveler is revealed and released. The Jedi kind of say, okay, we're done with this. We're going after the Nile, and we're going to attack them at their base. We have all the backstabbing between the Nile with whatever. I forgot the name of the runners. But just everything goes down in that book. We have Stellan Geos as kind of the face of the Red Jedi at that point, even though he really doesn't want to be. He's not really kind of that upfront with everything, but he has to be. He's the face of the Jedi. He rescued the Chancellor. So everything about that book, Kevin Scott did a great job following up Light of the Jedi, which had the daunting task of introducing this whole new era. And then Rising Storm just blew it out of the water. So Rising Storm, my number 4 favorite book.
I will not talk about Rising Storm because it's somewhere on my list.
All right, we'll get there in a minute. But let's say hi to a new friend out there, Jay Pylon. Hi, all, huge Star Wars fan, as we all are. Thanks for joining us, Jay. And let us know, Jay, in the comments, or in the chat, I should say, what are some of your favorite Star Wars books out there? Or stories if you read comics or anything.
Actually, you just, okay. So when I did the mental gymnastics, I had to take something out. And what I took out, and I forgot to mention in my honorable mentions, I had the Darth Vader run for Charles Soule.
Okay.
And I just want to say, please read comics. I'm a huge comic guy, and that story is just insane. And Greg Pak is doing a great job with the current run, and it's surprising because just Charles just set the bar so high.
Yep.
But that run is just incredible. And I think comics are literature. So sue me, English teachers. I love comics.
Yeah, that 25 issue Darth Vader run by Charles Soule was just phenomenal. Starting from ending of Revenge of the Sith all the way to everything. Plus, it introduced us to a great concept of the. Oh man, I can't believe I'm moving paper around. The Barrage Vow. I forgot the name of the Jedi that takes the Barrage Vow.
Which comes back
into the dark. So yeah, read comics and start with that one. So we're going to number 3. What's your number 3 favorite
My number 3 was also my number 1 for a while, and it's Light of the Jedi. I love that book. It's the perfect introduction to this new era. It's very well paced. I can get people seeing it a little bit daunting in how it jumps around with so many characters, and at the beginning, it's very hard to get a grasp on who you're supposed to be following very closely, because at the beginning we have all that jumping around with all the victims of what's about to happen, and then you get introduced to all the Jedi at the same time. But it's still a great book. I think after that first part of the book, when you get into part 2 and part 3, everything settles down a little bit, and you get to know who the key players are in the story, and it's just a fantastic. I really can't imagine a better introduction into a brand new era of Star Wars.
Yeah. I feel so bad by not having it in my top 5.
It's fine.
No. I mean, Light of the Jedi, it's, man, the more you think about it, but it just starts so depressing. Not depressing, but it gives you hope, and then just pulls a rug out of you. Chapter 1, right there, gone. Chapter 2, even worse. Then when chapter 3 comes in and you think the whole freaking planet is going to explode, or the moon, and then you get, this is Avar Kriss, Jedi, from the Jedi Council, the Jedi Master Avar Kriss here to help. I'm like, yes, I felt that. And I got emotional. Yeah, I was there. I was with them crying, and when she said Jedi Master Avar Kriss, we're here to help, I'm like, yes, freaking Jedi here. Again, tear it up by something so simple. And then halfway through the book, or 3/4, when they're on Elfrona, and they have kidnapped, the Nile have kidnapped this family, and then we have all the Jedi following, and the little kid is looking behind, and the lightsabers light up, and oh, they're coming. I'm like, yes, the Jedi hope is there. So yeah, Light of the Jedi, one of the best books. And again, like you said, just to introduce this new era and so many characters, but then also gives us one of the best ways that we start to understand the Force and how the Jedi connect to the Force, something brand new in Star Wars. And I love that concept.
It also introduced to us to the best villain of all time, Markian Rogue. So yeah, no, and I also love how they played Markian in that story, because you were like, is he a pawn in all of this? Yeah. What's his deal? And then at the end, boom! No, he's the master of puppets.
Yeah. So because when this era was introduced, they said, "Oh, now an enemy that Jedi have never kind of faced." And halfway, I'm like, "These are just pirates or marauders with a pyramid scheme. What's going on?" But by the end, you're like, "Oh, okay, they came to play. I know what's going on, and let me see
I
what I know.
oh,
Of course, she said something. Also, I mean, Marshall Row equals
that was for you.
baby boy. There you
That
go.
was
A
for you.
little kitty meow meow, like they like to say. Jay is adding Marvel comic original issues with Luke Skywalker, and of course, much of the Sun
Okay.
stuff. Great picks out there.
Yeah. So, two things. When I started reading that book, I had just read Chaos Rising, and when I first heard of the Jedi, oh, when I first heard of the Jedi Vectors, I was like, no, Vectors, no, because I
Yeah,
thought it was the like in the Zon books.
yeah.
it
No
took me
more
a while.
vectors.
It took me a while to realize they were actually ships,
Yeah, I mean,
and just another thing, when that twist gets so that's kind of the thing about audiobooks. I was kind of spoiled on the twist that Mark and Rowe orchestrated everything because when that scene happens when he calls the Jedi to come to Elfrona, it's Markion's voice. It's kind of like it sounds a little bit different, but it's the same
yeah, you can.
voice.
Okay.
So I remember I was sitting in my kitchen reading it like at 7 in the morning, and when it got to that part and he like recites what he said, I dropped the book. I was like, ah!
Yeah, I mean it's great. Again, Charles Soules can go wrong. I mean the authors that they pick to start the High Republic, and then even Wave Two that's coming or Phase Two, is just they know what
Yeah,
they're doing. And like we mentioned at the beginning, that when there wasn't any Star Wars movie between all these different trilogies, that books and comics were keeping it up. That's kind of Jay adding the vintage time period stories were so much fun in the building of the Star Wars lore. Love those old stories. And yeah, that's great. And they're
it's
still there for people that want to go back and start reading some of those.
and people like to talk about how Star Wars is dead right now. Star Wars was literally dead from 83 to 99, and the EU and the books and those stories
Yeah.
kept it alive in however they could.
All right. So my number three, I'll give a little hint, is a little lightsaber back there, little curved lightsaber. Kevin Scott coming up again.
Nice.
Dooku Jedi Lost. This is when it all started for me to okay, I gotta expand my horizons about what the Force and the Jedi and everything out there. Dooku Jedi Lost, a book that I left for so long. I didn't get the narrate the not the audiobook. I don't know how they
The
call it.
audio drama, audio drama.
Audio drama. Thank you. So I just got that paperback that you hate so much, little one, all flimsy. And I love that book so much. I liked Count Dooku before. I love Count Dooku now. Ventress, she's okay. I love Ventress. What Kevin Scott did in this book, showing us a whole history of Count Dooku, how he went from being a Jedi initiative first, then a Padawan with Yoda, then we get to meet Raul Everos a little bit from Master and Apprentice. We have Sifo Dyas and all that relationship, how then that comes to play with the Clone Wars. We just building more, expanding the lore of the Jedi Council. When they have Jedi Initiative, they have their little clans out there, the Hawkbill clan or whatever, kind of very Harry Potter like, which I love. How masters pick their Padawans. There's this lightsaber battle that they do to kind of see who's gonna go with who. A bunch of dark side stuff, and it connects so great to the High Republic. Master Trennis that fell, one of the fallen 20. You get that twist right there.
Did you see what Kevin Scott posted the other day? Maybe insinuating that it's not the
And
same as I hate him.
no, I think he was joking. He has
I
to.
hope so.
I don't know. We'll see. But I think he's joking. But who knows? There's a lot of years between High Republic
there
and Dooku
are
Jedi Lost. But and there's this other Jedi that Dooku has a connection with. Her job. She kind of goes to find dark side artifacts, even though they tell her not to. And there's this secret chamber in the council with all these dark side artifacts, and there is a conspiracy in the Jedi Council because one of them had a kid or had a relationship, and they're trying to hide it. And there's everything. Dooku Jedi Lost became one of my favorite stories, and Dooku one of my favorite villains and favorite characters. And also getting to know more about Ventress, the whole story, this back and forth that she has with basically the memory of her dead master, how she didn't get the chance to grow up in the Jedi Temple and go through all the same rituals and how she feels about that. And oh, come on, Dooku Jedi Lost, and it's a very easy read the way it's written because of the audio drama. People gotta get into it. Dooku Jedi Lost, come on, number 3 for me.
That's a great one, and I think it pairs well with Dark Disciple and with Master and Apprentice. Those three books make an interesting series.
Yeah.
And like you, reading Jedi Lost and also reading Dark Disciple helped me flesh out both Ventress and Dooku in a great way. And I the other day I was talking to someone and I told them I think Dooku's my favorite Sith, and these books have a lot to do with it.
Yeah, and he jumped, might be my favorite also. And then now with Exim Punchard, Viceroy, Panchard, Lord of the Sith. I love that both of them. He's a Viceroy, he's a Count, the Count of Sereno, hates that the Jedi took him and he doesn't remember his family. And then his sister comes into play. Kevin Scott, I'm telling you, him and Claudia Gray right now are battling for a top spot, at least for myself.
Okay.
All right, so you're number 2, I think.
Number 2.
It's gonna get fun now.
Yes, this is where the fun begins. My number 2, it's a book we talked about a little bit earlier. It was my number 1 until the High Republic came out. It was the first book I ever read about Star Wars, and it's Star Wars Bloodline.
Mm-hmm.
I've always loved Leia, even as a kid, and that book just you spend almost all the book with her. You barely jump to other characters, and it's such a great book. It fills in what was happening before Force Awakens. It helps you like picture, okay, this is how it all happened, because the movies don't do a great job explaining it. And Leia being like, hey, there's an army out there, and a Maxine army, by the way, which comes later in Into the Dark. And they're like, oh, you're just a warmonger, and it was so good. And it introduces the character of Ransom Casterfo,
whatever.
In audiobooks they pronounce it differently.
Really?
So
every audiobook in Star Wars,
yeah. So that character was so fun to spend time with, because it's kind of like Tia Toon in Rising Storm, where you get a first impression out of them, and by the end you're like, oh, that's what you think.
Yeah.
And he was great. And I want more Ransom, actually.
Yeah.
Give me a whole book about it.
And going back to Rising Storm, we have Jedi having multiple sexual acts with people, and they just tell you right there, and they're like, oh, poor Anakin, he didn't know the story of the other Jedi. Bloodlines. Bloodlines are a book I gotta go back and read. It's the first canon book that I read. Again, Claudia Gray. So I don't know. I was maybe expecting something else, or maybe I've read so many books that I've forgotten most of it. But the hype for that book was off the roof when I got it. So maybe I was waiting for something else. And like I said before, my favorite thing is Star Wars, is Jedi, Sith, the Force, and all that stuff. This is more the military side and kind of all this background stuff, which again, I love Catalyst so much, and that's all about all that Catalyst does. So I gotta go and read it again to give it a little bit more context. You just mentioned the Axamine. Amaxine. I've totally forgot there's mention of it. And that's one of my favorite things in Into the Dark and stuff. So I gotta go give it another shot. All right, my second Star Wars book. Now we're going to the Claudia Gray section of the top 5. One book that you put on your honorable mention, and it is The Fallen Star.
Ooh, okay, great.
Yes, I wasn't sure even if Fallen Star was gonna be my top 5. Is it gonna be before Rising Storm? And then I just started to think, okay, so emotionally, where was I reading this book? And I said before, Lost Star, the first one, I got a little bit teary-eyed. Fallen Star, I weep in this same chair, this same spot that I'm sitting on right now. I finished the book here. And I said before, it's not my favorite High Republic book, but it's the best High Republic book. For myself, this book did a perfect job closing that first chapter, this first phase of the High Republic. It brings everything into play. It is a small story. We don't have to go to 20 different planets. Everything happens in this space station. Claudia Gray has come and said how this is Titanic, Poseidon Adventure, where things just keep going wrong. And how do you fix it to be able to save as much people as you can, but you know that not everyone's going to make it. And you talk about Martian Robin, the puppet master, how he kind of says, okay, I'm going to do this my way. Everyone else go screw themselves. Oh, the Nile and the Tempest, go create chaos over there. I'm going to send 3 people that they just love me so much. They're so brainwashed that they'll do whatever I want. And they're going to bring down the whole Republic. I love everything that Martian Rowe did there. We have Orla Jareni, my favorite character. Rest in peace. I love you so much.
I can't believe he died. I still can't believe it.
Dude, we already had 2 Jedi die or kind of be comatose at that point. But once she said, oh, we'll meet back here in an hour, and if I'm not here, come look for me, I'm like, she's going to die. But I was still hoping that she wasn't going to. But then by the end, sorry, Arthur, I love you, and I love Stellan Geos, but the way he goes down after Elsar Man again goes to the dark side, cuts this person in half, and then Stellan has to step up with no connection to the Force. This is just he being a good person. Just, I gotta do this. I gotta save as many people I can because I know who I am. Everyone's been telling him, who are you without the Force, without the Order? This is who I am, and just sacrifice himself. And when I broke down, when his last act is to give Elsar Man his lightsaber, I broke down. I couldn't do it. I couldn't take it. And I said, Claudia Gray, you owe me therapy pretty soon, but I love everything that you do. And The Fallen Star, it was emotional. It broke me down. Our heroes are dead, but no one else could have done what she did.
I totally get that. And again, it's a great book. It pains me not to have it in my top 5. It constantly changes around. But it's like, you're a musician, so it's like taking a guitar and slowly starting to turn those.
Yeah.
It's because the tension builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. And at first I was like, because I was thinking there was going to be this big battle in Starlight.
Yeah.
And there isn't. Like, everything happens at the beginning and we go from there. And it's basically them versus Starlight, because Starlight is trying to kill them by falling. And so in that way, it caught me a little bit by surprise, but those beats just slam right into your face. And that moment when Stellan's just like, he knows what's going to happen. And he's like, this is the first time in my life that I've done something for me or because I want to do this. It was just, it's heartbreaking, but it also fills you with a lot of hope, because he died doing, it was a sacrifice he wanted to do, not one he thought he had to, not one that they asked him. No, at that moment, he knew he had to be the one.
Yeah.
And it's painful, but it just worked. And about Marken Rowe, I also felt, at first I was frustrated. I was like, he's literally taking a back seat, but he's literally taking a back seat. He's like, I'm just going to enjoy this.
He's just there enjoying it. He has a big screen, basically knows everything that's going on. And then at the end, he said, okay, I'm done people thinking that this person is the Eye of the Nile. I'm done with this. I'm going to use the same band that the Republic is using. I'm going to interject myself and say, this is my galaxy. I am the Eye of the Storm. Come at me.
I love that scene where he's like, I should have said ours, but no, the galaxy is mine.
It's everything. And I said Orla Jaren is my favorite character at that point, along with Comac. Might come back to playing a little bit. But one of my favorite things is when she's just laying it to Stellan. Who are you without the Force? Everything you're doing is for the cameras and all this. This is not you. And then at the end, it's just him. There's no one else.
Yeah.
Just him trying to do the best that he can to save the people down in the planet, because everything else is gone. It's just him in the station. Yeah, heartbreaking. Plus we get freaking Geo this back, saving the day twice. Buriaga, we don't know if he's alive or not. He has to be alive. He's fine. But still, you get that. There's like, did they just kill that poor Wookiee? But yes, Rip Stellan, also like you're saying, and also
Yes.
objectively, I understand. Subjectively, crying. Jay is also saying that will he ever play or get the Knights of the Old Republic
We
game?
are. I'm 100% sure.
Yeah. And then playing that series and reading the book was his childhood. So a lot of stuff. And then Shadow of the Empire.
Playing KOTOR was my childhood too. I never read the books, but I love those games.
Yeah. All right.
Number one.
We've gotten here against all odds. Don't tell me the odds. I didn't think that this was going to be possible. Rank Star Wars books again. And I think this is a topic that every year we should have an episode about Star Wars books, ranking them because there's so many. And maybe I go back and read Bloodline. I say, no, sorry, this is my top. So,
Yes.
all right, Oti, what's your number one Star
My
Wars
number one.
book?
I'm still surprised it's number one, but last night I was thinking about it. I love how that book made me feel. That was one of the books like Shadow of the Sith where I didn't binge 100 pages, but it was a book that it was hard to put down, and I just wanted to go back into it every second I got up. I remember, Alberto, ending a meeting at work. We were still like remote work, and I was like, okay, I have a meeting in 10 minutes. Let me just read a little bit. And it had the shorter chapters, which helps with that. Thank you so much for shorter chapters. And let's talk about Kevin Scott and The Rising Storm. I love devastation. I just indiscriminate murder. And
it was.
Wow. That book starts a little bit slow. You have Markion with the bird person thing and getting the leveler, and you're like, what's going on? Like, and all the setup, and all of a sudden they take a cinder block and drop it in the accelerator, and you just go, and it starts and it doesn't stop. It goes on for like 130 pages, like the slaughter, and it's so true to, and Fallen Star too, by the way. It's so true to that structure George Lucas wanted with there's a problem, solution, go, problem, solution, go. And I don't know, I don't think there's a better paced Star Wars book than this one. It starts out a little bit slow, but once it kicks off, it doesn't stop. And we get a lot of Markian Rowe. I love what we get with him. That you start to see that he's kind of making it up as he goes. He's a little bit like Palpatine, like, oh, it's the ground's starting to fall under me. Let me do this random thing and see if it works. It works. Okay, perfect. Yeah. And of course the introduction of the leveler, now known as the Nameless. At that moment, we had no idea what had happened. We were like, what?
The torture, the way he's torturing Loden, just putting him next to people that are being tortured so he can't get a connection to the Force and get better. It's like you're just getting all, oh man, he's evil. So evil. People still love him.
I adore him.
And I love, like you said, that the beginning. I even when he is helping this poor guy up that's has force sensitive and starting to get affected, and he kind of picks him up. I'm like, oh, Michael, he's so nice. Exactly. Not drag him down, picking him up, and then just dies because of this. Oh, you bastard! But you're so good.
He literally took him there just to try it out.
Yeah. Oh, it does work. And he's kind of getting defrosted or whatever. The lever is frozen at that point or something.
And the book also does this thing that frustrated all of us, but it ends abruptly. Like it's
the
like
worst way.
It's literally like if Empire Strikes Back ends the minute Han falls in carbonite, and you're like, what?
Yeah. At least there's a coming back from carbonite, not from a desiccated husk. I read Rising Storm. I think it was the book I read right after reading Dooku Jedi Lost for the first time. So I saw all the connections.
Oh, okay.
Floating cities, weird creatures that have this dark side connection, destruction and devastation because people didn't heed the premonitions that they had because Elsa Man knew something was going to happen, same as Dooku did in his book, or it might have been his friend Sifo Dyas had premonitions and no one believed him. So there was a lot of connections. So that's another reason why I gravitate also to Rising Storm.
And there's also a scene I love in that book when Elsa takes a dip into the dark side. And I love that scene because I think people miss the point of the dark side a little bit. And That's how every Darksider starts out. Like it's like, no, I'm just gonna just take a little bit, and
Yeah.
it's me. I know I'll know how to control it. I'm not gonna go down that downward spiral. And it's like, no, that's not how
Like
the
every
Dark.
addict. Yeah.
And look at Elsar, he does it again in the next book.
Man, he freaking
That-
Staros. No, Gira Staros is with.
that scene influenced. That was another book dropping scene.
Yeah.
It's like,
I closed
you
it.
killed them.
I closed the book. Like,
You killed them. You killed all of them.
yeah. Oh man, yeah. When he freaking, yes.
So yeah, that's my number one. I'm still surprised, but there's a lot of things I love about it. It's dreadful. It's fun. There's a lot going on, and again, I love the way it's structured with the shorter chapters and that helps the pacing.
Yeah. Rising Storm. I already talked about it. Great choice. My number 4, your number 1. And it's a lot of people's favorite High Republic book for great reasons, like you said. All right. My number 1 book. Like I said a year and a half ago, talking with Andrew.
I know where this is going.
You know where it's going. It doesn't matter. If you've been a fan of our show, you know where this is going. But talking about Catalyst and how it's never going to change, I think at that point I mentioned, Light of the Jedi had come out, the High Republic was brand new, didn't get too much into it because Andrew hadn't started. And I mentioned, I'm halfway or I'm beginning Into the Dark and really in love in this book. And I kind of just said it. Into the Dark by Claudia Gray, my favorite Star Wars book because it just grabbed my idea. Oh, you think this is the Force and how the Jedi deal with it and the Jedi Order? You know what? Chuck that out the window. You know nothing, poor boy. Claudia Gray smacked me across the face with everything about people's connections to the Force and deciding, are you following what the Jedi Order tells you, or is it your connection to the Force? Which way are you going to go where they're in conflict? Ola Jareni, Comac Virus, my favorite 2 High Republic characters because of this book. They have a mission that they have to work in Aram and Eroth, these 2 planets, which are now going to be very important in Phase 2. They have to save the princesses, I think, at that point. Mm-hmm. And they didn't even know where they were fighting. These princess from those 2 planets or queens. And again, we're going to see this in Phase 2, but for Ola, she's like, okay, if I feel the Force through instincts, and my instinct is saying I have to attack first, but the Jedi Order says we have to be defensive. Where do I fall? Okay, let me go what the Jedi Order teach me, and someone died. If I follow my instinct and my connection to the Force, maybe both of them will be alive. So what's going on? If what the Order is telling me is wrong, then the Force has to be right. And then for Comac, his master died, and he's told, okay, forget about it, no connections, we gotta move on. It's like, wait. I grew up with this person, I'm supposed to have no connections and just go. We have Reed, like you said. I forgot the name of the other Jedi that he's with, even though That's Raiden. Everyone thinks he's dead. Very cool name. I don't know why I keep forgetting about it. I want more because he takes the Varash vow. His connection to the Force is severed because the Drengir are so freaking evil, and I love the Drengir. At that point, I was forgetting now. Give me Drengir. Again, a weird creature that's connected to the dark side so much that the Sith were afraid of them. I had to bring these weird artifacts to bind them. And the Jedi, thinking that they know more than everyone, let's just open this up. And then they release all this dark side energy. There's so much in Into the Dark about the Force and how it works and how the Jedi connect to it that just opened my mind to new horizons. And that's where everything began, I guess, for me. It's like seeing Star Wars for the first time. Everything in Into the Dark for me worked especially when they come back. Once they leave the station, that's when the book starts for me. And then they have to go back and everything happened with the Now and Nan and this. I mean, Reed. Poor Reed falls in love with everyone and gave all the information to the Now just because he had a crush. And we have a Sabrak, an old Sabrak with Nan. Oh, he's your caretaker. No, he's a freaking Now. He's going to kill everyone. Everything about this book is perfect. Claudia Gray, like I said, she connects to Star Wars, at least for myself, better than anyone. Sorry, freaking guy with a cowboy hat. To me, Claudia Gray knows Star Wars better than anyone. Maybe not the history, I'll give Filoni, he knows the history of Star Wars and how to connect dots, but the themes in Star Wars and how to make a story feel like Star Wars, to me, no one does it better than Claudia Gray. And for me, this book, the way it expands what the Jedi Order is and what the Force is, forget about Great Jedi, we talk about Way Seekers, that's what I'm very interested in. And I keep going on and on. I think I'm rambling, but Into the Dark, my favorite High Republic book, my favorite Star Wars book. And I'll say it now, like I said for Catalyst,
It's never
I don't
changing.
know. I don't know if anything is gonna bring it down. Talk to me next year.
Okay. So no, again, as I mentioned, it's a great book. I think my biggest issue with it is like when they first get to the station, that book takes like a. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Alien when they're exploring this the base and going into. It kind of reminded me a little bit of that Alien feeling, and I was like in with the horror thing element of it all. And when Des dies, they go, no, let's get out of here, and they leave. And it kind of like cuts out that feeling the book was having. And for me, that kind of like bummed me out. And also the flashbacks, they worked for me in the sense that I love how they like incorporate it into the story and how it fleshed out those two characters. But it kind of took me out, like I'm into the story and let's take a flashback. I was like, okay. So in that way, it has a hard time growing in my list. But I agree with everything you said. It's a great book, and I agree with Arisu. Like we need more of Des Ryden. Like he was a fun character, and I really want more.
I want to see what he said. And by the end of this book, we have Des Ryden again going to do the Barrage Bow to find his connection to the Force. We have Cormac Virus that has also kind of his faith in the Force, not in the Force or in the Jedi Order, has been shaken, but he needs to get that back. So he goes the other way and gets a new Padawan in Wreath, who I'm reading this book, having read Light of the Jedi, something that Wreath didn't do. So when he gets back to Coruscant, his master is dead.
Yeah.
Because he was going to be the new marshal of the Starlight Beacon, and he didn't want to leave. He just wants to stay in the library. He doesn't want to go on adventures where his master is pushing him. And she dies. And when he comes back, he learns. And then he gets in with Comac, and then how that relationship builds by the end of Midnight Horizon, another great point. But we also get the introduction of the vessel and Geode and everyone from that crew, which we all love so much.
I can't believe that. I mean, it's a testament to how good the book is, but I can't believe we haven't talked about Geode. I mean, when I was reading it, I kept texting my friend. I was like, let Geode speak. Because Claudia Gray is so brilliant and always finding a reason why he won't say anything.
Yeah.
Although Geode was speechless and Geode knew better than to say anything. Yeah. Or maybe he was about to say anything and someone interrupts him.
Don't give me that look.
I remember there's a moment I love where Wreath is finally taking in the Force and he's like, I can't even feel Geode, I think.
Yeah. So you got the Kyber Arch. Why you cannot cross the Kyber Arch alone? Because everyone's there with, again, Claudia Gray. She needs to.
Again, I think the riddle's kind of obvious where it's going, but I love how Des goes like, I've seen a lot of people cross the Kyber Arch alone, but if Jorah Mali is telling you this, it's for something.
Into the Dark. Number 5, my favorite Star Wars book. And I can't wait to see what Claudia Gray does in phase 2. I think she has a comic book that she's gonna be writing. I'm gonna say I might be wrong. Might be her first comic book run. We'll see. I don't know.
Oh, I can't remember now.
I don't know. All right, so that's
we did it.
We did it. We still got a little bit more. We'll go through this quick, but we got a couple of rebel thoughts from our friends out there. We put it out on Twitter. What do people think with rebel?
You're a rebel now.
You're a rebel now. And our friend Arsu at Arsu, I mean, again, first, thanks for joining us today. And then she says, in no particular order, The Rising Storm, Padawan, The Last Jedi novelization, Resistance Reborn, and Lost Star. We've talked about most of this. Padawan is a brand new book. Great to see this already high in your list. And then also The Last Jedi novelization.
I'm dying to read Padawan. We have 2 common books. Awesome. And The Last Jedi, don't skip the novelizations. They bring some very
Yeah.
interesting tidbits, especially Rise of Skywalker and both Last Jedi. They have like very, very interesting stuff. And that prologue in Last Jedi is beautiful.
I haven't read it. I did the Rise of Skywalker one and the Solo one, which I
You
really
know what,
enjoyed.
Alberto? You should just like read that prologue because it's great.
Yeah, that's the funeral or Luke is sensing that Han died. Something.
No, it's Luke having a vision.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
interesting.
kind of. I heard. Anyway, I'll do something. And then finally, our friend also Cam at Cam Ray says Lost Stars hashtag make Lost Star 2 happen. Master and Apprentice, Darth Plagueis, and Dark Disciple. So Master and Apprentice are Darth Plagueis kind of making an appearance. Great books. I want to read Darth Plagueis. Very bummed that it's not canon, but I'll probably read it at some point.
I mean, it's all make believe, so
Yeah, who cares? It's everything makes sense if you want it to.
yeah.
All right. So thank you, Oti, as always. Thank you, Arzu. Thank you, Jay, for joining us today. Next week, like we said before, it's going to be our big watch along of Rogue One as we start our countdown to Andor. Next week, before we start our show, I'll kind of talk about all the guests we're going to have for Andor recaps. Some great guests we're going to be having. So, Oti, you're finishing up your move. Maybe next time you'll have a different background. We'll see.
I
How
don't
you
know where I'm
doing?
gonna record that episode.
It's
But
fine.
I'll make it
We're
up.
watching a movie. It
It's
doesn't
not
matter.
gonna. It's not gonna be here.
All right, just paint it. Put another color. We won't know.
Yeah.
All right. So, where can people find you? What are you working on? All that fun stuff.
You can find me at whatever it says down there in Twitter and Instagram. Check out my Twitter page because we started a new segment in the podcast called The World Between Worlds, where we take another movie, story, whatever, and see it through the lens of Star Wars. We did our first episode with Laura Kelly, with Mark from Pig Milk, and Norhal, of course. And we did it about Ted Lasso and how we connect the soccer show to Star Wars. You're just gonna have to hear it, but it's been a ton of fun. Alberto, if you come up with something, you can comment and we can talk about it. I've had people like DM me like, "Hey, would you like to do this?" I'm like, "Yes." So it's so fun. I want to do The Godfather. I don't know. It's a bunch
You gotta start watching Doctor Who, and then we'll talk. We'll make a connection. I'm on a Doctor Who binge this past few months. I'm like season 7.
Talk about Doctor Who after because I have thoughts.
Okay, man. Sonic screwdrivers. Those are just like Jedi without the blade. It's awesome. For myself, again, thank you for everyone for joining us today at Radio Rebel Pod on Twitter and Instagram. New shows every Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern, and then the audio version drops Monday at 11 in the morning. Tomorrow, Sunday, around 8 p.m., I'm going to be with the group at Followers of the Force. They have a new show for What Choice fundraiser. I think it goes from 8 to 10. I'm going to be there for the first hour, so keep an eye out for that.
I have to write to Ray because I told her I was going to be in the show, and she asked me what time. I'm like, oh, I forgot. so
this is your reminder, right?
I think I'll be there.
All right, so I might see you tomorrow. If not, see you next week when we do a Rogue One talk. And then again, a bunch of Andor stuff coming. I'm thinking the Andor trailer is going to drop next week, so we might talk about that before the Rogue One watch along. And a bunch of stuff. I don't know. You guys know. Whatever. You're here. Thanks for joining us. And stay safe. Be safe. May the Force be with you.